Good afternoon, teacher. My name is Carla, and I'm going to argue that the nation is a modern invention. Well, my argument starts that saying that the nation is an imagined, created, or invented concept that emerged in modernity as a result of multifactorial conditions that I think it's the Enlightenment, the nation building process of the 19th century in the industrialized capitalism. All of these factors allow the rise of nationalism, which is the ultimately creator of the nation, the idea of nation. Well, the nation is imagined as a limited and a sovereign community. Limited because nobody imagines a worldwide nation, and community because it's a field of comradeship. This conception doesn't deny the existence of shared cultural and linguistic features, but they are used by nationalism as a way of mobilizing people. Well, I developed my argument with this. Two questions. Well, no nations in pre-modern era. Why there was no nations? Because as we see in Middle Ages or in pre-modern era, there was no need for cultural similarities between the people in the ruler, and not even was the need for cultural similarities between the people, among the people. So there was no sentiment of belonging of the group of the people belonging into a nation, even in states that were already consolidated in those times, as we could argue, as France or Spain. And also the one state, one nation principle was not rooted or even applied until, we can argue, Europe, the First World War. Even if we look worldwide, we can argue that this principle wasn't applied till the decolonization processes. Well, but what is it about modernity then that makes this kind of imagination appear? Well, as I argued before, it is a multifactorial phenomenon, and one of them is the national building process in the 19th century that brings along a process of socialization of the state in national principles to the people. Thanks to the standardization of language, the national education is national literature, national history or geography, and also the mass mobilization in institutions like military service, and in case of Britain, the imperialism. Well, so what else? The industrialized capitalism created, as Gelder argues, the need for sharing a common culture in order to be able to maintain this big machinery of production that imply the industrialized era. And so the need of people at least to share to the standard language to be able to communicate, speak or read. And also print capitalism, as Anderson argues too, that created languages communities, linguistic communities. What about them? They make also the feeling of belonging to a nation within a specific language arise. But not only that, they also create languages of power as official in contrast of dialects, etc. And all this makes the sentiment of belonging be boosted. Well, another factor is the Enlightenment thought that brings also the possibility of new conceptions of time. As we will see, it develops modernity develops the concept of meanwhile, so the people could imagine themselves doing something at the same time that imagine other people doing another thing meanwhile. And that is important because it also brings this feeling of communion between people that you can imagine exist in your what you call nation. And also the secularization process brings the Enlightenment thought help to replace the notion of religion with one of nationalism. Why? Because after the Enlightenment thought and this secularization process, there came an existential crisis because religion was the one who was whose role was to explain the death of life, the death and life, the purpose of it. So in this case, we can argue that is replace it with nationalism, and there is why people is so willingly to fight for their country till their death. So, well, as I argued before, this social construction that is the nation, it's only a modern phenomenon, and we have to take into account that the creation doesn't go for it's not like it happened once, but as Billy argues also, it's a constant process of socialization in national terms. So it's a constant reproducing of this idea of nation. Well, thank you very much, teacher. Good afternoon.